What are your actions? I'm gonna say. Feels like cool air, no?
Feels like the AC, yeah.
You want to mention to William?
Yeah.
That Mr. Looks like the AC feels like the AC is on. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning. Good morning.
Boker Tov.
Okay, so
Okay. The last thing we were saying, we were discussing, we brought a machloket regarding a person, a mate, a corpse that's in the sun, whether you're allowed to go ahead, whether regarding putting a loaf of bread on the corpse, and as a result of that, moving the bed with the mate, or rolling the mate without enrolling from bed to bed without without the bread. And the Gemara wanted to say that the question is tiltul menatzad not directly handling the mukseh directly? The corpse is mukseh. You spoke to him, madam?
Yeah, I told one of them.
Very, very good. That the corpse is mukseh. When you're moving a mukseh, not directly, you're rolling the mate from bed to bed. You're moving the mukseh. You're not handling the mukseh directly, but you're doing it for the purpose of the mukseh. You're doing it for the purpose of the mate, which is mukseh, the corpse. Is that allowed or not allowed? That was the Gemara wanted to say, because that's the argument between the two rabbis, whether that's called, do we look at that type of movement like as movement or not? And the Gemara wanted to say that's the same machloket, perhaps that the later rabbis, Amoraim, are lining up with earlier rabbis that which discussed the case by when the mate is in danger of a fire coming to the mate, where we had two opinions whether you could move the mate. And the Gemara wanted to say that the case that they're arguing whether you can move the mate regarding the fire is exactly in the story that we're talking about. Whether could you roll the mate from from the bed to the bed? Would that type of movement be allowed? Would be considered a problematic movement when you're not directly handling the mate or not? And that's what the Gemara wanted to say. And the Gemara says, look, the Gemara wanted to say that really it's not you can't prove that the fact that there's an argument by the case of the corpse by the fire, that they would have the same argument by the corpse in the sun. That's what the Gemara says. Look, the Kuli Alma, the Gemara wants to say tilta minatzah shmei tilta. We're in the bottom of 43b3. Everybody would hold that carrying, if not, even if you're not directly carrying the mate, if you'd be picking up the bed and moving the mate that way, that would be called tiltul. That would be called a movement. You're doing it for the purpose of the mate. You're moving the mate. Maybe you're not directly handling the mate. You're just rolling it through the bed. But that would be considered, in general, maybe that would be considered movement. And therefore, you can't prove, maybe by the case of the sun, everybody would hold that would be called movement. And therefore, you would not just be able to move the bed from, just tilt the mate from bed to bed. Rather, you would have to use a kikara tenuk. You would have to use, good morning, Simon. You would have to use the bread or the child. Hainu time or any other item you just put on the mate and then carry the bed. Hainu timer Rabbi Yehuda ben Lakish, and the reason of Rabbi Yehuda ben Lakish is mitor she'adabola mito, because a person is when it comes to a dead body, we spoke, yes, someone's very distressed about that possibility of the body being lost to a fire. So therefore, Elo Sharit Le, now I'm Mem Dalet Amar Aleph, 44a on the top. Elo Sharit Le Oti L'chpuyeh. If you're not going to permit him to go ahead and move the mate, then we're afraid that he's going to, he might come to take the fire out. And that's why Rabbi Yehuda ben Lakish is lenient. Amar Rabbi Yehuda but really it's called movement. Really, it should be a prohibition of mukseh. But the rabbi said that better to put to the side the prohibition of mukseh because the people might come to take out the fire. So the Gemara says,
No.
oh,
So what we're saying is, in other words, if it's a guy who's going to die, you put out a fire, right? Someone's going to die,
correct.
we can put out a fire. Over here, the person's dead, but there's also the respect of the med at some level. So before we say you can put out a fire to respect the med, we're going to say you could do mukseh first.
Right. But no one says they would be able to take out a fire to protect the mate.
No, I know that. I'm just saying, in my mind, we're worried that the guy's going to put the fire out. Why is he going to put the fire out? To protect, to save the men.
Correct.
That's why he's doing it. So before we say, we want to prevent him from doing that. So before we could say we want to put him in a place where he's going to do that, would we not say go ahead and move the net in order to avoid putting out a fire?
So what he's saying is we allow the movement of the mate therefore we allow him to go ahead and move the mate from bed to bed. That's what the Gemara says. We allow, that's going to be the halacha. You can move the mate from bed to bed.
Not just a straight pickup. It has to be an unordinary.
Right. Oh, it's very good. So now you're asking a good question, Mark. You always ask good questions, right? What would be if you would not be able to?
I don't have a second bed to roll it into.
Right. So that would we have that the logic would be right based on without looking into it. The logic would be if we say, since the Gemara is concluding that movement, not direct movement, for the purpose of the mukseh, it's called movement, right? I can't if I have on the table candelabra that went out, and I did not put any chalot on the table before Shabbat, and now I have maybe I should use a candelabra case, but let's say the case of the mate that's in the sun, right? The Gemara says moving the mate in the sun by moving it from bed to bed, right? That would be considered and you're moving the mate indirectly. You're not handling the mate. Let's say the Gemara is saying that's called movement because that indirect, even though you're not touching the dead body, but you're picking up the bed that's holding the dead body. That's called carrying. If you're doing it for the purpose of the mate, because you don't want the mate, the sun, to beam on to go down on the mate, on the dead body. That's called movement. So if that's called movement, but the rabbi said, when it comes to the fire, we're going to allow that type of movement. So even though it's technical movement, so the logic would be, without looking in the Sfarim, there really is an issue of mukseh. But we're putting away the issue of mukseh to prevent the body, because the person might get so distressed that the fire is coming, he might come take out the fire. So if that's the case, it should be, by that logic, actually handling the body itself, which would be a muksa problem. Even if you don't have the bed, you should be able to move the body if you don't have another bed, because the issue is, again, that would also be a muksa problem. And we already established that the rabbis put to the side the problem of muksa in honor of when a person is going to be distressed. So that would be the logic, Mark. You know what I'm saying? Because because we have the precedent, the rabbis put to the side the muksa problem, the muksa issue when you might come to do a bigger sin called putting out the fire. Now,
Right. So take the lesser sin.
right, exactly. They're protecting the less, exactly. Now, it's interesting, we've been speaking
But
about,
again, you could just pack the whole thing up if you say, I need the space. And then you can
right.
physically pick up the body, two people, pick them up, move them out of the sun.
Pick up I would say pick up the bed. Pick up the bed with the body. If the body's on a bed, so
Right.
you're not handling directly the body. You're picking up the bed and you're moving it for the purpose of that space. So if you're moving from the tiltum outside, you're not directly moving,
Cold,
and you need the space.
cold.
So then you should be able to move. You should be able to move it by picking up the bed because you need the space. But here the issue is you're moving the bed. You want to move it because you need for protecting the muksa. That's the problem, right? Now, it's
Right.
interesting to know. It's interesting to know. We spoke about, there's making a fire on Shabbat. It's one of the 39 malachot. The taking out a fire on Shabbat. It's one of the 39 malachot, right? Now let him make a fire. You can't turn on the fire, right, Simon? You can't take out a fire. But we also spoke about the idea once upon a time that if the malacha, the prohibition of taking out a fire, many would say is only when you're creating something. When you're doing that, when you need to take out the fire because you have a purpose, you're making a coal, right? You need the extinguishing. The extinguishing act is a creative act. But if you just take out a fire without creating anything, without making a coal, just taking out a fire, that would be a rabbinic prohibition. Is that clear, everybody? Right? When you make a fire, you created a fire. You
No, it's
created
not
something.
clear. It's not clear to me.
So they point out that even though taking out a fire would be technically a rabbinic prohibition, but it's still sourced in the Torah. Taking out a fire is one of the 39 malachot. It happens to be the only way the violation is only when you technically take out the fire
Right.
with making something, creating something. Morning, Mark. So that rabbinic
I don't
prohibition,
understand.
meaning we know on Shabbat you can't make a fire on Shabbat.
Right.
That's now there's another malach on Shabbat. One of the 39 malachot is making a fire. One is also taking out a fire. We have a Shabbat. The 39 malachot you're not allowed to write on Shabbat. You have another malacha you can't erase. You have a malacha you can't build on Shabbat. You have another malacha called what? Can't demolish. Right? Now all those things that the opposite is only when you're doing it for a creative purpose. For instance, if you erase a letter on Shabbat, you write something and you erase it on Shabbat, you have an eraser, pencil, and you erase the letter, that the only way you would be violating the malach if you're erasing with the intent of writing on that spot. So then you're doing something creative. You needed the erasing in order to go ahead and what? You're in creation mode. Say you demolition, good morning, Asaf. If only one of your demolition, only because you're intending to build in that spot. On Shabbat. No, you don't have to have no. Monday, no. Demolition on Shabbat, even if you're not planning on building on Shabbat. Let's clarify that. You demolition on Shabbat, you want to build on Sunday. That's the malacha. Because you did a creative act on Shabbat. The fact that you're not building on Shabbat, it doesn't make a difference. The fact that you don't write the letter on Shabbat, you erased on Shabbat with the intent of writing, doesn't make a difference. You had a 10 writing on Sunday. That's not going to make a difference, Bob. Got it? The guy did demolition on Shabbat, even though he plans on doing the building.
Does it fall in the category of destruction? Goes in the category of
Creating. So it's a right. Exactly.
Exactly.
Right, exactly. So that's called. That's where the malach. So the same thing as the fire. Extinguishing a fire itself would not be a Torah violation unless you extinguish the fire with the intent of what? Of creating something. A coal. You made a coal. How do you make a coal? You have a piece of wood on fire. Now you blow out the fire. Now the coal is going to be burning. So that. Right, exactly. So what's the Gemara saying? Why? So both are rabbinic. Muktzah is rabbinic, and the Gemara is concerned about the extinguishing of the fire. What do you mean? What's that? That will only be if taking out the fire will only be a rabbinic. It's only rabbinic prohibition if you're only taking out the fire for the sake of taking out a fire. So now we got the 44.1a. So that's the question. But they point out that even though it will be a rabbinic concern, what are we afraid of by the body when there's a fire? The big concern we're worried about is the fire. Is the guy taking out the fire? But even if he takes out the fire, it's rabbinic, and it's they're both that's the difference. You hear what Mark says? Are they both at a different level? Why? Because muksa itself, moving muksa on Shabbat, that's not in the Torah. You can't find it in the Torah. That's muksa. That's a rabbi's thing to protect, defense. But extinguishing is found in the Torah, but only under certain circumstances, with the intent of making something. So therefore, since this malacha of extinguishing is found in the Torah, the rabbis are more protective of that malacha than mukseh. So therefore, how do you like that? Therefore, they were more strict regarding that.
So
there's levels with in rabbinic laws where the rabbis that there's mukseh, there's extinguishing a fire, shining light. Right. It should be different. Correct. Actual biblical prohibition. Right. 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 Very good. Because you're extinguishing, but you didn't fulfill a condition. So therefore, the rabbis are more protective of that, and therefore the rabbis will loosen up on that muksa prohibition to protect that close level, like that degree when you're very, as they say, they're very hot. The pun. You're very hot. You're lukewarm. Where is it? You're very close. Exactly. Now, I wanted to say, with all, what Mark, you started saying today, it's a question of a dead body. It's not a live body. We do everything to save a live body, right? We'll desecrate the Shabbat, whatever it is to save a life. But when it comes to the dead body, we see that the rabbis were not so fast to allow certain rabbinic things. But I think we have to also remember, I think I mentioned one day when Adam was
talk about the distress of the person.
Right, the stress of the the stress of the
person, not solely for their distress, just for their distress because they might put that fire.
Say it again.
It's not about their distress purely. It's about if they're distressed, what would they do?
Right, and therefore we're concerned for what they're going to do. We want to protect that they shouldn't come to action, not their stress. But right, I mean, we do care about people's distress, but not enough to even to break that rabbinic law unless it's necessary to protect. But we do remember there's a big deal. Here we talk, when it comes to autopsies, and once I mentioned that. The halacha is we're not allowed to do autopsies, because an autopsy is they cut the body of the mate, and so there are a lot of things that we are very concerned about the honor. So on the one hand, when we see that the rabbinic law is so strong that maybe we would not have been so concerned about, so to speak, if the mate
We surely care about it.
Right, I'm just saying. So I'm saying, we know we have many laws about the protection, and even the laws of burial right away,
Right.
not to delay, only for the honor of the mate, the allowance. So I'm saying, so it's not. There's a balance here. That's what I want to say. I'm saying we have that, but yet, really, what this Gemara shows us, I think, really what we could take out Al Pi Musa is how powerful and how, as much as we're so concerned about a mate and the respect that we do to the mate, how they clean the mate after they did the tahara and everything we do for a mate, but when it comes to certain laws of protecting the Shabbat or mukseh, they're like that's something you got to deal with. That might hold us up if the mate is in the sun, and you have a child, you have a loaf of bread, put it on the mate and get going. And then you could pick up the butt. I said maybe you can even put your shirt, put your coat on it. Now you're not just carrying, you're carrying and they allowed that even though they wouldn't allow it in other circumstances, but they'll allow it in this circumstance.
So theoretically, this concept of putting your shirt or putting your coat on. Can I put my shirt or coat on any side?
Right. So you see that seems to be that would be a leniency for they say this idea of kika or tinuk is a special leniency they allowed for a mate. It wouldn't be this in every situation.
Put my t-shirt on top of my cash and pick it up.
Right? And then pick up what? Pick up the table that's holding the cash. Right? We're not talking about directly. We're not talking about picking the cash up directly. Right. We've seen that wouldn't be an allowance. Right? Because that would be an easy story, right? A guy left his candle. He didn't put home books. Be over. Well, you got a gun. You just put your thing on top. So this was a special allowance that they allowed for the mate under certain, unless if you do certain things to give that allowance. I just want to just balance out, a little bit about that. Now,
But again, you need space circumvents. Oh,
if you not all depending how you're carrying it. Meaning to say, let's say if you need the space, you can move a hammer. You can move, but you can't. If you need the space, you can't move. You can't move money, direct money, or those type of or something that was on from before, a fire that was burning from before Shabbat, a candelabra, right? That would not allow you, but that seems to be now a little bit over here.
If I need the space and it's money is going to treat really highest level of items. The only way I can move, if I need the space, I have to move them in
In way, direct, right. No, you can't move it even again, if it's lit, you won't be able to move it because it might go out. But once it's out, the way you can move it in ordinary place, and you go ahead and you go like this and you pick it up. If it's a stick, got to be pretty good movement on your hands to pick it up. Now, but remember, you see, the question would be, Mark, you see, when you talk about needing the space, let's say money, you see, the question would be, which we have to look up the following halachic question. Money that was on the table before Shabbat, right? And it wasn't, you didn't plan on having the money there. It wasn't supposed to be there. It's supposed to be taken away. Supposed to take away. So now the fact that it was supposed to be taken away, now that table is not called, you see, it's something to be called if that money is removed, it was supposed to be taken away. So, and now it's Friday night, the money is there, right? So now it was there, when the money was put there before Shabbat, and it's there as Shabbat entered, it's on the table, money's on the table. You come home from shul Friday night, you see money on the table. But it wasn't meant to be there. If you go ahead and knock the money off the table with your elbows, then you can move the table afterwards. Because that table was not considered, it's not considered a support for Mukser, because even though it was on the table before Shabbat, it wasn't meant to be there. But if you had a table that you meant to keep your money on the table before Shabbat, and then you left the money there for Shabbat, and then Friday night you decide, oh, I want the space, but the table, I can't move the table, right? Why? But I can't move. If I want to move the table unusual way, I could, but I can't move the table normal way. Why? Because if I meant that the table should support the muktzeh, and it was there from before, as Shabbat entered, it was there throughout Shabbat when it entered the morning. That table has the status of the money. So now, if it's a status of money, the fact you got the money off the table, but the table now has a law of what? It was muktzah when Shabbat began. It's muktzah when Shabbat. It's muktzah throughout Shabbat as a status of the money.
If I move the egg in an inordinary way, I move the plate.
Depends. I'll tell you what depends on Mark. Was the plate there before? Right, exactly. That plate, exactly. The plate would not be a problem.
But it was put there to catch the egg and with the intent of holding the item on Shabbat.
Right,
But it only caught it on
right.
Shabbat.
So now you're getting into a good point. He had no, he was not allowed to put the plate to catch the mokseh because that you're knocking out the utensil from use.
Right.
So therefore, you were not allowed to use that. You were not allowed to do. You were not allowed to go ahead and put the plate underneath the mokseh, but he went ahead and he did it. So now that he did it, it should be that when the item is off of it, you should be able to move that item. So that, what I wanted it was thinking about if, let's say on Shabbat, the question would be if somebody, let's say, put the money on the table on Shabbat, the cleaning lady left and put the money on the table, or you didn't intend to have the money on the table, and it's on the table, right? And now you need the space of the table. You want wherever the table is, I want this spot empty. I want to clear this area. So I'm moving it not for the mukseh. I'm moving it not directly because I'm not handling the money. The money's on the table. I need the space. So, and the table does not have a status of supporting of the mukseh because it wasn't intended to be there. So therefore, I wonder if we would say that you could actually, with the money on it, because the money wasn't on it from before Shabbat. It wasn't supposed to be there. The money, someone put money on it on Shabbat. And I'm moving it not directly, because I'm moving the table with the money on it. I'm not handling the money, and I'm moving it for the purpose of the space. So,
Space, not the table space, the space where the table was.
right, where the table was. Right, I'm moving the table out. Right, and I want.
Okay, so then
That should.
the egg and the plate. If I need the space where the chicken left, the egg is on the plate, and I need the space of where the egg is. Where the plate is.
If you need the space where the egg plate is, according to this, but I want to double check. The logic would be that I should be able to pick it up because I'm not because the plate was not there from before Shabbat. It did not. It's not considered. Doesn't have the same stat. No, I'm saying, but the muksa was there for Shabbat, so it's not. So therefore, I should be able to go ahead and I'm moving it not directly, and I'm moving it for the purpose of the non-muksa item. But I did see also that if we don't want you to, if you're able to shake it off right away, the muksa off, certain things maybe you can shake off, but we don't want you to just, okay, now I'm doing it for the purpose of the space. Now I could just move it wherever as far as, and then put it over and just walk around as far, rather we want to limit what you could do in that such circumstance. We want you to say, just go ahead and just shake it off in that spot. Meaning, let's say you have your money on that table. Let's say that example I just gave you. There was money, the cleaning lady put money on the table. Or by mistake, it was left on it. It wasn't meant to be there that this table should support the mukseh. And now I need the space where it is. So even though I might allow you to move it for the space, but I'm not, we tell you just shake it off in the spot. Don't go ahead and just pick it up, move it where, pick it upstairs, move the table with the money on it, because I need the space. Okay, I'll move it over there. No, just shake it out right over there, which is similar. I'll give you a similar case. What about money? We're going to have to learn about it. Money left in a pocket of a coat on Shabbat. And you need the coat. So you weren't intending to leave. Now, if you intended to leave the money there in the coat, that's my weekday coat, and I intend to leave the money in the coat, and the coat, let's say, is supporting the money, we have to see, let's say a pocket like this, that, the shirt is supporting, it's not a separate pocket. To see when it's a let's say inside you have like a, right. If it's no pocket big, so the shirt is supporting the money, and I intended to leave the money, let's say, in the shirt, if it would be that type of thing, then the shirt becomes mukseh. It was intended to support the mukseh. Now Shabbat, I can't pick up the shirt. What if I can't pick up the shirt on Shabbat? Because it's supporting the mukseh, and I intended it not. But what if I did not intend to leave the money there? I forgot I left the money. So then the shirt should not become a support of the mukseh. So what would I do? And I need the shirt. I'm not moving the money for the purpose of the money. Right. Let's say I was at a wedding and whatever it was, and I ran out of shirts and I had a beautiful whatever it was. Well, let's say the coat. I gave you an example. I brought my Shabbat coat. Whatever we have to see. So now I just take the item, shake out the mukseh. How am I picking up the coat?
To pick up the shirt, to turn it upside down, to shake out the money.
But again, I moved. I didn't move the money, but I moved again. As long as I moved the mukseh from the side, it wasn't with my elbow, that type of movement. But if I'm moving it, since the shirt did not get the status of the mukseh because it wasn't intended to remain there to support it for Shabbat, then I can pick up the shirt, shake it out. Now, why? Because I'm doing it for the purpose of I'm not doing, if I'm shaking out because I want the money there, because I want to give it for the cleaning lady, that I would not be able, that's no good. Because I'm moving it indirectly for the purpose from the side for the purpose of the money. Because I want the money. But when I'm moving it indirectly, not because I'm not handling it directly, and I'm not doing it for the purpose of the money. I want the coat. I want you wear the shirt. So then I should be able to go ahead, but we're gonna tell you shake it out on the spot. We're not gonna go say bring the shirt up, bring it, wherever you want to, carry it wherever you want it to go, and then bring it to the drawer where you have the money or whatever that opens. And that's not right. We don't say that. Take it on the spot. How do you like that? You see how the minimizing what? Beautiful, right?
So when there's a pocket bag.
So we have to see more about the case of the coat.
Pull the bag out and let the money fall out.
Right. So,
It's easier than shaking the shirt upside down.
right. So we have to see more again.
And then
When
the other
you,
question
yeah,
is,
we'll see more about the
okay,
pocket
Friday
story.
night, you come to the table, you see this cash on the table, $500, $500 bills. Right where I sit, in front of the counter, where happens. Right where I'm sitting.
Sounds good.
They take it. They don't leave me money. They don't leave me money. They take my money.
You gotta be careful who the cleaning help in the house is, Mark. Watch out.
So if I have 500.
I once had a story. I staged
Yeah,
the
I
thing.
gotta get.
Right.
This is where I mean,
Right.
my only thing, what was the-
Right.
Take it in ordinary way.
Knock it down with your elbow.
Knock it down my elbow, and now there's $500 bills, or $500 bills on the floor. Leave it there through Shabbat.
No. So again, I would say there's a different Mark, no. So the answer is like this. No. You're not picking up, it's not like you're picking up the money indirectly. You're not picking up the money at all. So there you could kick it wherever you want. See, we're gonna make that distinction also. When you are picking up a garment with the money inside and you picked it up, that's a normal way of picking up, but you didn't handle the money directly. So there we'll say shake it out on the spot. But once you shook it out on the spot, you could kick it wherever you want. You could use your elbow wherever you want, kick it under the couch, whatever you want to, that's not a problem. You could do what you want. You could kick it wherever you want, right? Right. There is another interesting halacha, which is interesting you might ask, is that if a guy moves, what I understand, if you pick up a hammer because you needed the space, you don't have to drop the hammer. Because you had a right to move the hammer for the space. There, they don't say because you moved it, say meaning you move the hammer, here's the case. You move the hammer to crack the nut. You moved it for a permitted purpose. You had a right to move the hammer to crack the nut. Now you finished cracking the nut. Do you have to drop the hammer? No. You could take the hammer where you want to put it. Then we're gonna, you see, we have to see that circumstance. We're gonna say
That's a low level.
it's a lower level muksa, and you moved it originally for a permitted use.
So I had to do it.
I had a right to do it.
I can't say, oh, because I could use this to crack a walnut, I would pick it up. So I crack a walnut, I'm not gonna crack a walnut. I pick it up and I move it.
Now you can't, right? Yeah,
That's
that's playing games, right?
I have to crack the nut.
And if I had a right to move the muksa, that was a purpose for a perfect purpose. Now I don't have to drop the hammer when I finish. Okay, time flies when you're having fun, everybody. How do you like all the? We're getting into a lot of practical, a lot of. There's a whole svarim on muksa. There's a whole, there's a whole big. It's a big subject. It's a whole sefer written on muksa. You know what I'm saying? Many svarim. Have a great day, Asaf. All the best, everybody. You're going away, you said? Okay, be safe travels. When will we'll look forward to having you back?
Go early.
Oh, you're going away for the holiday already?
Oh.
Okay, we're looking forward. We should try to build Friday's class because a lot of people are not working on Friday. It's like a 4-day week for a lot of people. They're on different schedule Friday.
4 days?
So I'm saying,
4 days.
yeah. So maybe we could try to get more people to come just for Friday. How do you like that idea? And once we get to Friday, hopefully when they taste the ice cream, they're gonna want to come back. Sound like a businessman, Mark? Salesman. Have a great day, everybody. You got to bring